All right, and we are live. Hey, everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Thought I would sit down, do a video for you guys and gals. Hold on, let me link the Facebook fitness page. If you guys will please follow me there and see what we get in here today. All right, so topic today I want to discuss with you guys is lifting weights to burn body fat, because one of the things I'm doing more and more is ramping my training volume up as I've been continuing to get leaner. And a lot of people have asked questions like, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Instead, hold on. Okay. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that instead, right? And well, here's the thing. We have pretty good data at this point. We have good data at this point showing that lifting weights burns fat just as effectively as cardio does. The only downside when people say, but you can do this other stuff, I'm like, but does it stimulate muscle growth? In fact, I had a regular actually, she came in and commented, why don't you do this CrossFit stuff? It's like, because it won't build muscle at those intensity levels. And that's the reason. One of the big perks that we have of lifting weights, if we continue to add volume, is that we can stimulate muscle growth. We have better potential for recomposition. Right? We have better potential for recomposition in that case. And if we can recomposition, that's even better. And meaning actual real lifting, right? And lifting that you can recover from. Because if you're doing a bunch of GPP for it, and that GPP doesn't take you close to muscle failure, probably not any significant growth stimulus, and that's the downside to it. Or they're like, well, if you do a bunch of over-unders or whatever. Okay, but only one or two muscles might get any stimulus, the ones that reach muscle failure. And are you getting close to failure? Right? Because we need a growth effect. So whereas in what you guys see me doing, adding large amounts of training volume, sets of calves, sets of biceps, sets of delts, all this stuff to failure for very, very large amounts of training volume. But these are hard work sets. They're going to have a growth stimulus. Even if it's a very, very tiny stimulus, we are still stimulating new muscle growth adaptations. Okay, so that's one of the things that I've been doing is working on improving body composition through all this and improving metabolic capacity. So again, a lot of what you guys see me doing is, I have to turn that off, sorry. All right. Okay. Need to just turn that off. I have set to certain people can get through, but they can't be texting me during lives. All right, so over to the point. Sorry about that interruption. Over to the point. Pursuing body composition, right? That's what we're trying to do here. That is what we're trying to do. We're trying to gain muscle while losing body fat concurrently. And so again, the fasted training, the protein overfeeding, doing the cardio fasted, but the same thing, the lifting fasted. But yes, there comes a point where in theory, as long as you can recover from the volume, we can keep adding more volume. And I used to be resistant to that idea. But the longer I've coached, the longer I've watched different clients, the longer I've watched different athletes that I know, other coaches, looked at the data, the more it does become apparent that we can do lots and lots of lifting, even while in a calorie deficit, even while carbohydrates are fairly low. And as long as our sleep is on point, protein's on point, nutrition is on point, we can use that additional lifting to create a small calorie deficit. And we can use that to continue to burn fat and gain muscle and recomposition. So I want to be clear on that. So I think the older evidence-based idea that people had, right? What was the old idea? That we have to reduce lifting because we're not going to gain muscle in a deficit anyways, and we can't recover from the additional lifting, so scale it back. And they're like, but the bodybuilding bros all did the opposite, but they were wrong. Okay, that was generally the evidence-based idea. And I used to buy into that to some extent, but it's not really evidence-based, is it? It's its own form of pseudoscience. It was his own form of pseudoscience. And there comes a point with some of those things to where we have to step back and go, did we really have that right? Right? Did we really have it right? And it's looking like we really didn't. It looks like with a lot of this stuff, as time has passed on, a lot of the bodybuilding bros did get a lot of stuff right. They got a lot of stuff right. And at a certain point, we just simply have to admit that, hey, these guys got a lot of stuff right. And as further and further evidence comes out and we dig deeper and more research is done, better methods of measuring are done, it turns out a lot of them really had it closer than we thought. And the reality is, how much of really the evidence-based world are we seeing are people who are just maybe being lazy. So again, I've noticed it even with my own clients. I've noticed it with people I know, the ability to, if your work capacity is good and you're in shape, people can do a lot of training in a deficit. And I'm showing the same thing here, right? With what I'm doing these days. I've been adding training volume. Okay. We've been adding training volume while adding cardio, while cutting carbs lower, while being in a deficit. And yet here I am recovering. Just like this week, I finally did 6 days of training instead of 5. Right? I had a 6th workout. I came in and did a whole separate arm day, fasted and did my cardio. But there I am doing lower carbohydrates, doing everything fasted, and yet somehow I've been able to continue to increase my training volumes without performance degrading. And I'm continuing to look better over time, and that should continue to do so, right? I mean, a lot of people have given credit for that, and I appreciate that, but I'm still at that midway point. Yes, I am probably the fittest I've ever been in terms of just overall physique at this point, but I'm not there yet. We're going to keep improving, right? We're going to continue to improve because it's working. It is working. And so we keep moving forward. Here's the thing, man. We're 6 minutes into this and not one comment. Okay. So we're going to chill in here and see if some people trickle in. There we go. Yeah, I don't remember you doing 7 days years ago. Dean, I absolutely did. So what I did was a spin-off conjugate. And back then I wanted to see how far I could push it, because I started saying, look, we can do conjugate and rotate max effort lifts. But what would happen if I trained every day? So what I did an upper lower, just like conjugate. So I took what would have been conjugate method max effort days, and instead of twice a week, I ran them 7 days a week. And I did it for months. I did it for like 6 months straight, right? Remember, I got my deadlift up into the 600s. I was squatting mid 500s, right? That's what I did. I did it all on camera. And the only time I was deloading was when I was going to see my ex-girlfriend, who was long distance, and I would go fly out to see her for 5 days at a time. And that was my only downtime. So about every 7 weeks or so, I took a week to go do that, right? So that's essentially what I did. Thoughts on Steve Shaw's rep goal system? I don't necessarily buy into that idea. I don't buy into it unless you're doing sets close to failure. Because if it's just, hey, can we just reach the reps through any means necessary? I don't know about that. But do you set a target number of reps? But I mean, is there any system to it? Right? Is there any system to it? And there really isn't. Why can't you just come in and do 3 sets to failure, 5 sets to failure, 10 sets to failure? Why do you even need a rep goal system? Like, there's nothing magical about that. I'm not saying it's a bad idea either. So don't get me wrong. I'm not even knocking it. So let me be clear on that. But it's not anything particularly special beyond just doing your work sets. Joe says, in it, your training just 5-3-1. My training is not even remotely similar in any way to 5-3-1. See, that's a weird take. That's a very weird take. So Joe, if you've read 5-3-1 and then you look at what I did this week, I had a chest day where I did 3 sets of heavy bench, three sets of heavy bench with 315. That's already not 5-3-1. And then I did a bunch of high rep work that wasn't percentage. It wasn't 50% of my squat max or any of that. That's flavored water with extra electrolytes added. So, we did a bunch of, my clients don't get, their stuff's all customized. No, they're not even remotely. I literally have some clients who train 3 days a week and some who train 5. Some of them are on body part splits. Some are upper lowers. Some do heavy singles, some do not. Some do really heavy top end sets, some just do straight sets, different exercises, different loading, different volumes. Mm-mm. So their sheets are very, very different. About the only thing they all have in common, most of their workouts start with a heavy barbell exercise. That's about it. So it's all customized. But no, training is nothing like it. So you can take the bench day. We did that. Then we did incline work, dumbbell work, lots of pullovers, triceps. So not really. The next day was a back and bicep day. It's pull-ups, three types of rows, 3 types of curls, 30 sets of curls. That's definitely not 5-3-1. Next day was hamstring day and glute. Started with deadlifts and did 12 sets of reverse hypers. So yeah, I've squatted every single day for 5 years straight. Yeah, he's essentially doing like a Bulgarian light. I struggled with that system, by the way. I didn't know I haven't said anything good about me. It's cool. I ran Bulgarian light for like half a year like that. I had problems with it. It was tough. Mainly is that it beat my connective tissue up too much, right? Beat my connective tissue up too much. Which is why I tried later the conjugate thing, where I just did a training max and then sets of tens on a bunch of lifts afterwards, which worked, but it did become problematic. So what I'm doing now more is a little more focusing on stimulus fatigue. Right? We really only have about 3 heavy exercises per week, not every day. And then the other days it's mostly rep work. Like so, even like my back and bicep day, I start with sets of 10. I'll pull weighted pull-ups, right? We don't really go under about 10 reps on any of those days. Same thing with the overhead press day. Those are hitting about 6 or 7, but we don't go super, super heavy. And then everything else is really high rep work on the shoulder day. And then I had an arm day today, which was everything was 12 plus reps. Nothing was under 12. So again, different stuff. But yeah, so the training for me right now, it's pretty much now at this point gone from a 5-day bodybuilding split to a 6-day bodybuilding split, but with heavy squat, bench, and deadlift at the start of the appropriate split days. Right. So obviously the posterior chain day, we start with a deadlift, chest day, we start with bench. But I'm going to probably just do mostly incline work and pullovers outside of the flat bench, even for chest, right? And then lots of tricep work after. But no, the squatting every day can work. It's just, man, it's tough. It's mentally fatiguing, and it's not for everybody. For me, it wasn't so much the mental as it was the physical. Like my tendons in my lower body just did not like it. They stayed continually inflamed, and it got worse about 3 to 4 months in. Right. But yeah, that getting up and squatting every day to a heavy single it does start to weigh on you mentally. It weighs on you mentally a lot, and that's one of the big issues I had with it too. But the connective tissue was the hardest part. But I mean, I was squatting high 400s every day while doing it. So I mean, my average day, I would walk in and squat like 475 to 485. Right, and then I would bench after, and then it was very, very minimalist. So, what else we got going on, guys? Radish said flavored water. Yeah, this one's actually the sugar-free Kool-Aid. It's put in a gallon jug, like 1 packet, and then I mix electrolytes with it. I poured it in a glass rather than have my big jug here, and I added a little more potassium to this one. So, yeah, it's quiet today. It's okay, Dean. It's fine. I'm not worried about it. It's notice there's only 11 people in here. James, what do you mean? Of course I had it. Like that's a legitimate medical diagnosis. James, mainly because it's been in the burnout phase for so long, it rarely causes me problems. Does that make sense? So I don't talk about it a lot. But do I still have it? Yeah, it doesn't go away. And I really did have it. That was not made up. James, there's things that people accuse me of lying about that I didn't. I feel like I've already apologized for the things that were untruths, and things like that really were real, right? That was actually real. And it is still real. And I have an actual diagnosis from more than one medical specialist. Um, no, Joe. Hey, Joe, what does that have to do with fitness? I can set whatever I want. If I want to set it at $1 million, that's my purview. In fact, I might do that next time just to spite you. Hold on. Set the goal at $1 million. Oh, hold on. But no, I mean, yeah, the goal's unreal. But I've gotten the most I've ever gotten from the super chats was I've made $200 in one stream before. A couple of years ago, but it's happening. Right? Those things do happen. Was it inspired by The Rock? No. Is it still kind of an imitation? Yes, but it's something that I learned to do easily. It was one of those things where when I started getting on camera, I realized that I do it easily. And sometimes I do it without thinking about it, and it comes really easy. So I go ahead and just do it. I mean, and I suppose maybe inspired by The Rock. I kind of saw Matt Ogus doing it, and he was, I guess, inspired by The Rock years ago, and that's what kind of when I started doing it. Right? The people's eyebrow. We'll take that as fitness related since The Rock is a lifter and pretty dang jacked and has been a professional athlete. Sorry. A lot of things that I have for apps pop up right where my questions are. This is where the windows are. My thing is connecting. That happened yesterday. My whole thing shut down, by the way. It had an error. Right? It had an error. All right. What else we have going on? Yes, get some interesting questions. We'll try to get some good chats going here. But if not, we don't. It's all good. Might have to do another one of these later then to make up for it. If we don't get much going, I can go back and work on some other work. I can work on some other projects, guys. Other stuff I can do. Like I got to do a couple client sheets still today that have not been sorted. Dick Valentine says, looking shredded JB, great work. I've been out of the YouTube fitness game for a while. Appreciate it, man. I'm going to keep getting leaner. I still need to tighten up more. I need to bring up the arms more. But yeah, it's coming along. It's coming along. I've made a lot of progress there. We're going to keep making progress. Now that I'm actually training for physique stuff and doing lots of arm work and tons of high rep isolation, dieting, fasting, cardio, keep improving, you know. End up be in my best form when I turn 50. That would be kind of cool, right? That's what we should be doing for inspiration, right? We should be trying to inspire people. That's why another reason I don't want to do all the drama and nonsense. I don't want to make my money off of doing that. Like if I'm going to do anything, I want to inspire and help people, right? Instead of picking fights and mocking people, you know, that's just not good karma. It's not good energy, right? It's not good energy. You know, that's been the other thing. People want me to do certain things like that. It's like, guys, that comes at a price, you know, that comes at a price to you. Because if you put bad stuff out, bad stuff tends to come back to you, you know, and it's just not worth it. right? It's not worth it. I would much rather put out positive, helpful stuff, inspire people, help people, um, you know, make money that way. I think it's a way better way to do it. You know, it's a way better way to do it. So we just keep improving and keep teaching, keep inspiring, keep motivating people. And that's the name of the game, guys. Um, I'm gonna post this if you guys will follow me on the Facebook fitness page. I got my check mark today, by the way. If you guys noticed, go check it out. I finally got a check mark on that page after all of these years. Finally got it meta verified, business verified. We'll just continue fitness new thing every single day. Habit, it's my business, it's my lifestyle, right? Am I going to do it forever though? Maybe not. I do have other things that may end up replacing it as a long term. Because it does come at a price, man, because you're out here and you deal with a lot of nonsense. There does come a point where, you know, it may eventually end one day, or at least scale way back. Valentine says, "Are you still strong?" Well, have you watched the vlog? So here's where we're at, right? I'm at a lighter body weight, and the heaviest lifts I've hit on some of the better lifts recently. This week I did 3 sets of 3 with 315 on the pause bench, right? All pause, right? I did 3 triples in a row, so 9 total reps out of 3 sets. The other day I pulled with just chalk and a belt and a pair of shorts on, nothing else. I deadlifted 550 for a triple, and I failed the fourth. I couldn't lock the 4th rep. I missed it. But I'll take it. I mean, considering I've cut down decently lean, I'm still cutting. I've been doing fasted cardio, and I've turned 58 in 48. That's going to be put into sound takes. Oh my God. I turned 48 in 2 weeks. And 550 for a triple, I mean, I'll take it. I'll take it. I think it's respectable. I mean, it doesn't put me as the best in the world. There are guys stronger than that. But, considering 47, weighing just over 200 pounds, 550 for 3 reps, all reset, I mean, I'll take it. No straps or anything. I think it's respectable. I mean, you might disagree, and that's okay. I think it's respectable. Repping 315 for pause reps on the bench. It's okay. I need my squat to come back up. I started low bar squatting again recently. I want to bring it back up. I know the most I hit not long ago, I hit 470 for a single on a safety bar. I do want to get the squat back up to 500 though. I don't like being under a 500 squat. I feel 500 is kind of that number, that respectable number, right? To where at least like, okay, you're pretty strong, so I need to get back to there. I mean, realistically, and that's just for my own satisfaction. I know other people don't necessarily expect that. They really don't, Nobody expects you to be squatting 500 pounds and you're getting up towards 50. But for me, it's a personal ego thing, right? Because I've always kind of given that as a litmus test. I've always used the 500 barbell squat as kind of a benchmark. So, I mean, I probably do need to get back to that. My last meet, I went 496 at my last meet, no sleeps though, a couple years back. So it was almost 500, but I do need to get back into 500. William Molly says hello. Well, hello, William. How you doing, man? How you doing? So that's what we have going on. Any other questions, Valentine? William, got any questions you rolling in here? Good, just chilling. You, man, I'm just relaxing. This is a really slow one of these. It was a little more lively last night. I think I did that a little later there in the day. So this one's not really got a whole lot flowing in, does it? Um, do you look forward to heavy squat day? I dread it. No, I really don't. I need to get my mindset towards doing that. All right. William says when you lose body fat, no, not necessarily, William. That's not necessarily true at all. If you lose muscle, you're going to lose strength. But that's where we have to look at what we're doing with our cutting, right? Another reason to cut really slow. Another reason not to get so fat that we have to do a lot of cutting. Make lean gains, guys. Okay, William, but isn't that kind of a different thing? I mean, we've talked a lot. You've seen me and a lot of other coaches talk about body fat and leverages too, though, for certain big lifts, right? So you have to factor that in. But that only counts on certain lifts, William. I mean, look at some of the strongest deadlifters, like powerlifting deadlifters, not strongman where they're wearing suits and all that. All right. I mean, look at Kayla Woolham. Was deadlifting well into the 900s, just like 215 with abs. So were you sure about that? And that's raw. That's not in a deadlift suit with straps and all that stuff, right? So just factor that in. You might want to rethink that through. Our cardio, well, you're talking about Eddie Hall, but that wasn't a raw deadlift, William. And he was over 400 pounds in a deadlift suit with straps. Okay, so that's a different lift. Or fiber supplements like Psyllium Husk recommended. I don't think they're particularly useful unless your doctor thinks you need one personally. Since 6 days of lifting, how many cardio days? I'm gonna probably keep doing 7 for now. Right, as long as weather, I'm gonna base it around how the weather is. I don't want to go do cardio in the rain. If it's cold, I'll do it. It was cold today and I did it. So it's going to depend on weather, honestly. But I think with the extra lifting, it'll give me flexibility there. But just for general health, I mean, getting out and doing some cardio most days is just good for your health, right? It's good for your health. And that's really what we should be promoting too. You know, are we fit? Are we healthy? Balance says, would you say gaining weight is an easy way to gain strength? Okay, is it a way to gain strength at the muscular level, or do you mean by improved leverages to let your muscles lift more while contracting at the same amount? Because I've covered that, and I saw Paul Carter even address the same thing. We both addressed this in the last month, I know for a fact, right? That when you're gaining body fat and gaining body weight, it's the extra weight you lift on the bench and the squat is not because you're gaining more muscle. That is not what's happening. You're getting a leverage advantage. But the muscles themselves we're not gaining additional muscle. Because we know that from studies on top of that gaining body fat does not cause faster muscle growth. Even a 10% surplus in the studies does not cause more muscle growth than like a 50 calorie surplus per day did. It only causes more fat gain. And a 10%, we're only talking like a 300 calorie surplus. I mean, this is what we're showing. So lean gains are completely possible. And it's possible to gain nearly maximal muscle growth with no fat gain. But again, that's so different from what a lot of people have been taught that it's hard for them to get their head around it. But then we have that my leverages improve when I'm gaining the fat in the water, but it's not really muscular strength you're gaining, it's leverage strength. And it's not going to cause you to gain more muscle either because you're not really putting more tension on the muscle fibers. You're really not. I mean, so there's different ways to look at it. I mean, I guess it's a matter of perspective. Is it necessary to warm up on the big lift? Some people just do, but others don't. Well, I don't ever warm up on deadlifts and I don't get hurt. I mean, all right, what do you define as a warm-up, Dean? I mean, I warm up on deadlifts. I do 1 rep before I go to 500 plus. I do a single rep. I brush my teeth. I usually pee and drink some coffee. That warms me up. right? So would you count that as a warm up? Now, so what are you defining as a warm up? I'm drinking some coffee first. That's warm. I usually do a single rep of 405 before I load it up. That's my norm. My last meet, I didn't warm up. I just pulled my opener, which was over 500 pounds. I didn't even warm up. I just got my socks on and chalked up and went and pulled it. No, I mean I do on the other lifts though. I don't touch a bench without benching the empty bar for a few reps before I put plates on. Squats, I usually do a single with like one plate per side, then a single with two plates aside. I'll do like one rep, you know. But benching, I usually do a couple reps with that. I'll do a rep with 135. I'll do a rep with 125. I'm sorry, 225. You know, so I mean, I'll do a few reps, and then I'll go to 315 plus or whatever. Me personally, that's considered very minimal. Deadlifts, I don't really warm up. I'll do, like I said, one rep. So, like, let's say I'm going to pull 550 for a top set. I just come in and do 405 for one rep, and then I put 550 on the bar. I don't even bother anymore. That'll be if it's my first lift of the day, and I don't get hurt doing it. I'm almost 50 years old. The question becomes, you know, are you in shape or not? You know, if the more out of shape you are, yeah, the probably more warm ups you need. But I would argue a lot of this stuff could be done after. I mean, really, if you're chasing hypertrophy and all that, I would rather just get the heavy work done and then do all that small pump work after. So, I mean, I know that's a difference of thought between, say, the winning warm ups versus me who's coming in and doing kind of the same thing afterwards, right? After all my pressing and other stuff, I'll come and do a bunch of sets of 20 or 30 or 40 on band press downs afterwards. We could argue the philosophy behind this all day long. Yeah, I think the Windlers ramp ups they're too much. I feel like they fatigue you on those sets, and then when you hit that set, you don't have anything left. It's like you almost can't do a good workout after. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I just don't like that aspect of it. And I agree with you. It makes it difficult. And it doesn't make it right or wrong. No, not necessarily. It's just a different approach and a different feel. I think it's easy for us to get too dogmatic in that stuff, right? And I generally program the other. I'd rather my people do all that stuff. Yeah, it depends on individual fitness levels. But I mean, my fitness level is really high. My conditioning's high. Like, so for me, I'm not worried about warming up on the deadlift. I'm just going to pull 405 and then start loading plates. And it doesn't hurt. I don't pull anything. But I would also make the case for that of look how many reverse hypers and things I do. I've done years of reverse hypers, and that's kind of changed the game for me for my back. Like even right now, you guys are watching me do like 10 sets of almost 700 pounds after my pulling. So it keeps my back in good shape. All right. Like this week, I think I'm going to do my deadlifts, and I'll probably do some, 500 plus glute bridges, and then we'll do that. When we use an RDO over a stiff leg deadlift, how much do you go? I personally prefer an RDL, and here's the thing: we're kind of tit for tat. Like, do you realistically think as a supplemental exercise, one of them is just dramatically different or superior to the other? Not really. An RDL is supposed to do a good morning, but okay, so think about the difference between a good morning and these exercises. The good morning is more of a Swiss Army knife. It's a more versatile tool because the good morning is about 6 or 7 different exercises. There's all these variations of the good morning, as we saw coming out of Westside, who kind of lived on good mornings. I used to program a lot of good mornings. I might end up doing them again. I mean, I've very much considered going back and throwing some good mornings in because I get a lot out of them. Especially now that I'm in a low bar squat again. I could always consider throwing some back in on my posterior chain day because I used to good morning over 500 pounds. I've done 550 on camera before. So it's a more versatile exercise. The stiff leg is really just a matter of, do you want to stretch reflex in the hamstrings, or do you just want to pull with a little more rounded back in the stiff leg? Do you want a more hamstring dominant, harder pull that puts you into a mechanical disadvantage for hypertrophy over a conventional, or are you trying to get an eccentric base stretch reflex? I mean, it's just a matter of how you want to build your muscle and what you're seeking to get. Right? It's purely a matter of what training response you want. But is the hypertrophy or the development going to be vastly different between the two? Probably not. Not in the grand scheme of things. It's just one exercise. Right? Would it be pointless doing both narrow and wide squats? Not necessarily. Right? Talking about the belt squat. You're talking about the belt squat machine. Honestly, I'm going to go in the direction of, look, if we're going to go over to the belt squat machine, unless you're using it just to build more adductor, that's really what we're looking at. What are you trying to build? Because if you go narrower, you're going to be able to get a deeper knee angle. You're going to be able to get more quad. And when you go wider, you're probably going to get a little more adductor. So it's really a question of, what are you trying to get out of the belt squat? Right? Could there be a point to doing both? Maybe. But are you still going to develop both muscles with both? I like to do them more narrow these days just because I want the extra quad. Me personally, I'd rather just get more quad out of it. Honestly, I'm going to go ahead and isolate the lower body because I'm going to get adductor out of my other posterior chain work, my wider stance squats. It works. I mean, I'll get it even if I go back and throw good mornings back in. So it comes down to looking at what are you trying to do with your overall development and the flow of your training. And I think that's where people mess up. They get too much of looking at the nuance of one exercise instead of looking at the totality of where does it fit into your overall big picture. All right. So if you're doing a shoulder width or wider good morning, you're getting plenty of glute adductor from that. So could you do a narrower stance on your belt squat to maximize your quads and still get good adductor development? Or are you trying to maximize adductor development at the expense of a little bit of quad? So that's the question you should ask with that. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to achieve? And where does it fit in the totality of your overall training? Right? Again, always the question we need to ask. All right? You feel me, brother? It's good to hear. Definitely keep it in mind. Again, the art of coaching, the art of programming. I don't understand fantasy football at all, Zachary. Sorry. I don't really know how it works. I would be a terrible person to ask. I have no idea. I've never actually played fantasy football nor seen it played. So I don't know what it is. Like I know vaguely of the concept. Not my thing. No. I don't know which one squats the most. All right. Cool. Any other questions? How often do you recommend sticking with an exercise, whether it be the primary, secondary? That's going to really depend. It depends on what our stimulus fatigue and overuse situation is. I mean, I sometimes change stuff up purely for psychological reasons or overuse, but it depends on the person's volumes, if they're getting tendon issues, if they're getting boredom issues. I have some clients on really high volumes of training who deal with psychological boredom. So we rotate some of their lifts every 3 weeks, but we'll have lifts that we keep in forever. Right, indefinitely, particularly primary lifts. I mean, unless we're doing conjugate where we're rotating max effort lifts. I mean, if we're going to chase, say, the squat, bench, deadlift, and pull up, okay, as primaries. I could keep those in every week for 5 years straight, 10 years straight, as long as we don't have an overuse problem. Okay? As long as we don't have an overuse issue. But that can be handled by regulating the volume of those movements and then filling in the gaps with other stuff. Now, can we rotate a lot of those smaller movements more often, or particularly secondary compounds? Dean, appreciate the super chat there. So, give you a shout out for that. Thank you so much. So again, a lot of times secondary compound movements are where we'd like to see a lot more rotation. What do you think of sissy squats for growing quads? I think sissy squats can work fine for growing quads. I bought a sissy squat bench. I have one. I just haven't been using it lately. I own one. I think they're pretty good at this point. I used to not like them, but then I became less dogmatic and less stubborn and accepted, you know what, they're a pretty good exercise. See how that works? We're allowed to be less dogmatic, aren't we? And to say, you know what, it's actually a pretty decent exercise. I think it works. Same thing with goblet squats, right? I really listened to what Dan John had to say about them. You know, but the thing is, I'm not going to listen to some kid. That's usually my thing. But you take someone like Dan John, I mean, his record as a coach speak for themselves, right? That's it. I mean, it speaks for itself. And I've heard him make some great arguments for the use of the goblet squat. And I started using it more with a lot of my clients. And I think it's a fantastic exercise. And I used to think it was silly. And I've had clients who they don't want to do it. Well, it's a silly, useless exercise. Well, my client has an exercise science degree felt that way. I'm like, dude, it's a good exercise. So it's the same thing with the sissy squats. I think particularly on the sissy squat bench. The problem I have with mine, though, it won't let me lay all the way back. I wish it did. It'll fall over. It doesn't have enough support. Maybe in a bigger environment, I'll have a bigger one, and it would make more sense then. But as it stands, I mean, I could easily argue for quads. I mean, really, back squat, and then some sort of machine squat, like a leg press, hack squat, belt squat, and then leg extensions will give you 100% quad development, and you've got 3 different exercises. But we come back over to, are we concerned with overuse? Do we want some variety sometimes? And in that case, stuff like a sissy squat makes sense. Okay. Could you replace something like the leg extension possibly with a sissy squat? And I think that you can. All right. Do you prescribe stretching to your clients? No, not really. Would you consider doing a collab with Ian McCarthy? I've been taking a trip down memory lane. Ian's been going through a tough time. I mean, Ian would have to reach out to me and ask me for a collab. If Ian reached out and asked for a collab, and he'd be cool and do it, with no gotcha moments and just a chill conversation, I would collab with Ian. Yeah. I don't dislike Ian. We may have had our beefs, and I've had some stuff where I had to kind of cut him out because he had his own issues on social media with me, but I don't dislike Ian as a person. Okay. I want to be clear on that. I do not dislike Ian as a person in any way. Those issues aside, so would I sit down and do a one-on-one and just chat with Ian and upload it or whatever? Yeah. I mean, I'd be cool with that. At the moment, I'm not going to do any in-person stuff. I will eventually, because I got a lot of irons in the fire. Down the road, maybe in a year, I would absolutely consider some in-person collabs with people. All right. But I've got some stuff in my own life I have to work around to make that happen. And I've had offers, like I have somebody wanting to fly me out for a podcast, a guy I know. I told him, let's just Zoom it, because it's going to take away from some other stuff that I can't do. So we're probably we might do that soon. It's a fairly small podcast. He's like, I don't care about trolls. Let's just do it. But it's someone I've done some work with in the past. But it's not even fitness. It's small business related. like running a small business. So Zachary said, Coach, thoughts on drinking milk or any dairy when dealing with a nasty head cold, some say dairy. Can it really, yeah, you might have some mucus issues, but it can't really make the cold itself worse. Could it be an issue of some extra possible congestion from mucus or something? Maybe. But isn't that's going to be a case by case? I mean, I'm going to drink it anyways, probably. Me personally. But, do you have a serious issue with your head cold that bad and does it give you too much mucus? Well, in that case, then yeah, it would make sense to cut it out. All right. Just got to use some common sense, guys. But it's a totally fair question. I would definitely say, but it would be based on those criteria. Yeah. All right. So what else we got? Because I may wind this down here shortly. But we hit one of them super chats out of the 10. The reason I put that up because it's a tool they added. I'm like, I might as well just hit it. I don't see an issue with that. I don't ever expect to actually hit those super chats. I just put it up there because it gives me the option to click the button and do it sometimes. Right? If you have really bad mobility of hamstrings and the whole back side of the body can have a negative impact on squat, yeah, it can impact a lot of things. Right? Too tight of hamstrings can throw you into all sorts of biomechanic problems. But a little bit of stretch reflex stuff, some Romanian deadlifts, things like that. Good mornings can resolve that really quickly, can't they? Yes, they can. I think they can. Speaking of that, I might work some good mornings. I was thinking of doing glute bridges this coming week, but I almost feel like loading that cambered bar and doing some good mornings, right? Do you guys remember when I was really strong on those? How cool would it be for me to get back in the 500s on that thing again? That would be kind of cool. I can't believe I did. That's one of those things I look back and go, what was that? What in the world? How did I do that? Did I lose my mind to even try it, let alone think I was going to achieve it and then end up doing it? It's like, I sometimes don't have any sense. I don't have any sense. But I did it and I didn't get hurt. So, there's that. And it did give me some big old thick hamstrings. But I was also doing sets of 10 with 400 on it. Right. You can't be scared. Can't be scared of a little bit of weight. Yeah, well, Dean says the thing with the cambered bar on the good mornings, everyone who does it is like, it just feels so, it's like this bar was made for good mornings, right? It was made for good mornings. The only downside is just it's a pain in the butt to put in and out because it's an 85-pound bar that's awkward. And so it's not even like a regular bar you clean up and put up there. It's this big awkward thing that you have to get into the rack and put up on there. That's the problem. And what I've seen at least one coach who owns a powerlifting gym who kind of said, we just kind of leave the cambered bar in the monolift most of the time. We just leave it there. He said that on my Facebook, and I thought that was the funniest thing. Is someone who, has to do it with just the one rack. I totally get that. I get that. And anyone who's not messed with the cambered bar, you're not going to understand till you get used to loading and unloading it. And you're like, it's an 85-pound bar that I have to load into this thing. It's just, do you think people like David Goggins push people? I think David Goggins probably does get too many people hurt. And it's like some people I've heard say ex-Navy SEALs are probably not the best people to get your fitness advice from. And for a whole lot of reasons. Because think about the personality type of who makes the cut for that and the genetic phenotypes that make the cut for that. That's a completely different type of human being. that might as well almost be a different species at that point. Someone who's even capable of making your SEAL selection. And normal people don't do that. I wouldn't make it. Most of you guys wouldn't make it. We all know that, right? Laurie says, hey, coach, would you prescribe an athlete ollie lifts just to focus on the big three? No, I don't do usually. Well, no. Power cleans, yes. Power snatches, yes. I have for some athletes. But ones who already have some background in it, because I do virtual coaching. If they're not already proficient in those lifts, I'm not going to prescribe them. If they're an athlete who already knows how to perform them and has been coached on them, I have done that with a few of my lifters, right? I don't have an issue with that. I have an issue with it. Well, Zach, I'm not going to discuss that topic really myself. But, yeah, Army's got its own situation. And those who follow my social media, you already know. I don't need to cover it again. Because that all came out, and people realized, oh, Jason really does know some of these people are in his family and stuff. Yeah. I lost a really close family member who was 20 years into being a Ranger and about to retire. We were really close, but we talked a lot. We were super close. But yeah, because those guys are definitely a different breed too. If you meet a few of them there, But that's its own personality type right there. Like, that's its own extreme person. And they're all athletes. They're all strong. Like, I'm chatting with these guys, and they're all, pulling 550, 600 conventional deadlifts and stuff, which is interesting. It's pretty common in those circles. Some strong dudes who can also run, Yeah. They all use Skeeter too, though. I didn't say that. Yeah. They all on that vitamin T. All right. 52 minutes. I think it might be time to go ahead and wind this down. So I hope it's been informative. I love all of you guys and gals, and I will talk to you next time.